This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
Everyone knows that old saying that money cannot buy happiness, but what about having fun with your money? Financial well-being coach Erin Gray helps people come to terms with where they are financially and have some fun with that money. In this edition of Bizgnus Interviews, Erin Gray says she's teaching what she learned the hard way. Erin, you ask whether your followers are, as you put it, ready to have fun with their money. Fun with money? Well, maybe for the Vegas crowd, but for entrepreneurs trying to improve and grow their companies, fun is not found in the money equation, or is it?
Such a good question. So maybe fun, my idea of fun might be different from other people's idea of fun. I say fun as in joy and fulfillment. And I think, at least in the Western society, we have come or been conditioned to be in a place where it's hustle and it's stress and it's rushing and it's thinking about the future all the time. And so really maybe replace fun with being in the present, which is not something that we value in the Western society or we practice very much. So that's probably what I would say, fun with our money.
How did you get to where you were actually having fun with money?
The short highlighted Instagram version, right, that everyone loves to, is I quit a family business. I started my own practice. I took time off, which was going to be 3 months, but ended up being almost 3 years. I did a lot of nervous system regulation, somatic work. And I got to a place that I recognized and realized that the future, yes, it does exist and it doesn't exist. And I was living most of my life for the future. I was saving for retirement. I was saving for that time in the future that I could actually have fun and enjoy my life versus actually being present and enjoying my life in the everyday. That happens, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Well, what do your clients say? Is this an easy adoption for them, or do they struggle?
It started, I think for me, it got to the point where I was, and I think this happens for a lot of us. I got to the point where I didn't know what I wanted. I just knew that what I was doing wasn't going to be something I wanted to continue to do for the next 20 or 30 years of my life. So for me, it was almost a pain point or a sticking point that I had to get to realize the life that I had created up to the point where I was checked all of the boxes and they, what they say to do, but I didn't feel present. I didn't feel fun. I didn't feel fulfillment in my body. And so for me, it was recognizing, okay, I don't know what I want yet, but I know I don't want this. And that's enough for me to start kind of peeling back the onion and recognizing, okay, there are things that are going to have to change, and it happens slowly. It did not happen overnight.
Erin, when did you realize you were getting there?
Probably, I would probably say 2 years maybe into me taking some time off, recognizing, oh, this is what life is actually supposed to be about. This is what everyone says, and I'm not retired, right? I'm back now helping female founders and entrepreneurs. But this is this idea that like, this is what life is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be this struggle and hustle and, dreaming for the next thing, constantly chasing the next goal.
Erin, you describe yourself as a financial well-being coach. Tell us what that is.
So what I have in my own personal experience and women that I've supported, what I realized is that it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you do not feel, which a lot of my clients and myself has experienced this, a very scarcity, or I call a poverty conscious mindset. So it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you are not enjoying your life now, like what are we making all of this money for? What are we saving and investing this money for? If we aren't actually enjoying ourselves, enjoying our lives. And I'm not talking about going and, traveling all the time or spending, luxurious things. It's just like, are we actually feeling fulfilled on the daily? Are we actually taking time to take care of ourselves? Are we actually taking time to take care of our body, our mental, our emotional, our spiritual well-being? Because having all of the money and the lies that we've been sold about, oh, the money is going to bring you happiness, that's such a fallacy. And recognizing if you aren't emotionally well, and I'm not talking about like we all have our emotions, we all experience, highs and lows. But if we are not taking care of ourselves and taking care of our emotional well-being, then everything that we're going for, like what you have to ask yourself, what is it for if we're not actually being able to experience and have joy and fulfillment in the moment, in the day to day?
Well, what do your clients say? Is this an easy adoption for them, or do they struggle?
I wouldn't call it a struggle. I would call it's a skill, right? It is a skill set that we have to learn because a lot of us have been taught or brought up that fulfillment or joy comes from external factors versus generating that from within us. So I don't think that the switch gets flipped so easily. And I also think it's a skill set that I'm able to teach to people and they're able to go and then, continue to do that on their own. But it's something that we don't talk a lot about. And we definitely don't. I mean, turn on the TV and someone's trying to sell you something and there's something wrong with you. And I'm air quoting for those of you listening, right? There's something wrong with you. So you need to buy this to feel this way versus understanding that our feelings, our well-being is something that's created within us.
Erin, do you find that some of your clients just can't make it?
No, I think that there is a difference of willingness. I think that is what separates. I mean, I always ask, someone before they're ready to work with me, like, are you willing? Like, this is something that we can do together, but we have to be willing to feel some of that discomfort, to experience and feel the emotions that are going to come up. And a lot of those emotions aren't happy-go-lucky emotions that we work through, right? There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of fear that goes on as we work through some of these old paradigms or these conditions, right, that we've grown up around. But I believe everyone is capable of changing their relationship with money. It's just the question that needs to be asked is, are we willing? And in the beginning, my answer was no, I wasn't willing until I got to the point where I was like, okay, something does have to give. I am willing. I am ready. And I think that decision is different, or that, timeline is different for every person.
Erin, could you take what you have learned now back into your family's companies? And what impact do you think that would have?
Man, I wish I would have known some of the things I knew when I was, helping run it. They have, since I've left, my father and my uncle have sold their company, but it's definitely something that I wish I would have known about because I could have supported the employees so much better. And I also, here we go back to willing, right? I just actually interviewed my dad on my podcast. And at the time, he wasn't necessarily willing to work through some of the stuff that needed to be worked through. And so here we go back to that's okay. Like that can be okay. It's just recognizing, because I think that comes from such a place of empowerment versus disempowerment. When you know that you have a choice, but you're choosing not to, there's power in that, even if, we're still choosing not to do something. So I do wish I would have had some of the tools that I have now. I think I could have been much less stressed, much more present, a better employer to the employees. There's a lot of things that I would have done differently had I known what I know now.
Erin, how can people get in touch with you? Do you have a website?
Yes, they can just go to generatealifewelllived.com.
That's a mighty title and a very, very easy one to remember.
Yeah.
And what would you like to add that we haven't talked about? And it could be anything.
Probably that it happens one day at a time, that the lies that we've been sold that, change happens overnight and our relationship with money changes instantly. I haven't found that to be true for myself or people that I've supported, that it's a process, and that the more that we can lean into and kind of get comfortable with, an ever evolving relationship with money and changing how we think and feel about it as a process, instead of like, I've got to get to this place really quickly so I don't have to feel this way anymore, I think it actually does speed up the process.
You've been listening to the Bizgnus Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@bizgnus.com. That's BIZGNUS.com. Thanks for listening.